Hey guys, I'm going to talk about how to avoid some problems and issues with hummingbird feeders. So this is a new one that I just got. I had to replace my old hummingbird feeder because I was just kind of neglecting it. I had one that was very fancy looking because I wanted to get a fancy one, and it had some elements to it that made it difficult to clean. I'll include a picture of it. It had these little flowers on it. It was a nice bottle and all that. But what I found over time is that it just added nooks and crannies to it that made it difficult to clean. And now with this one, it's very simple, but still does the job. And this one also has some simple features that help you understand how much of the nectar is being drunk by the hummingbirds. It has these little, like a ruler, I suppose, and you can tell based on how much is draining, how many birds are coming to the feeder. And that can be a very helpful thing in determining how many birds there are. The other thing is, and I embarrassingly only learned this recently, the nectars that you would buy at the store, they tend to be something you need to refrigerate after you open them. So I was filling my old feeder with essentially spoiled nectar and wondering why the birds weren't coming back to my feeder. And what was happening with my old feeder is the spoiled nectar was essentially turning into a sugar glue, and the whole thing became sticky and even more difficult to clean than usual, and the nectar became kind of a yellowish color, and it happened over a long enough time that I didn't even notice that the color was different. I had forgotten that it was clear to begin with. Kind of embarrassing. So that comes back to how much you would put in the feeder. You may not want to fill the whole thing up because if there's so much in it and then it goes bad, then you're just wasting the nectar. So you might want to only fill it a little bit and then watch and kind of gauge and understand how much is being taken by the hummingbirds. And then you'll have a better idea of how much they're taking. So we had a taker just now, but I kind of spooked him, scared him away. Another thing to keep in mind is hummingbirds can be very aggressive, so you might not see more than one bird on the feeder at a time, despite there being space for more than one bird. They can be a little territorial and be like, hey, this feeder is mine. On my old feeder, I had one bird muscle out another one and take over drinking. So to solve that problem, if you have a lot of hummingbirds in your area and you're noticing that, what you can do is just set up another feeder on the other side of the yard, and then that'll allow for more space, and they won't be trying to muscle each other out of these feeders, basically. And you might notice on top here, there is a little hook and like a little reservoir. That is an insect trap. So since it's essentially sugar water, the nectar that you're putting in these feeders, it can attract insects, especially ants. And so the little reservoir on that hook is basically a trap that they will crawl into and they can't get out. You would fill it with generally vegetable oil because they won't be able to get out of that and then make it to the feeder. And so your feeder will be protected from possible insect attack. Another thing to keep in mind with a hummingbird feeder is keep an eye on the coloration of the nectar. And this is something that I kind of failed to do because my previous one was a red bottle. So I could not tell that the nectar was becoming discolored over time and spoiling in the sun, essentially. And it was more difficult to tell that the nectar was condensating on the outside of the feeder as well. Like you can kind of tell that it looks like it's a little bit sweaty on the top there. I think that's because it's getting hit by the sun and it's condensating. And on my old feeder, the top and the outside of the whole thing became sticky over time. And this is another failure on my part. I just let it go for too long and just neglected it. So I hope some of these things help you guys kind of be more aware of the issues you can encounter with hummingbird feeders and keep them in good, clean condition so that the hummingbirds will keep coming back every time.